We're going to take you back to the beginning of the war, and I'll show you over here to my right over here. You'll see some horses going by. These are part of the Philippine Scouts. I believe they're being followed by the M2 white scout car. A lot of people don't realize the Philippine Scouts were actually the first unit to use the M1 rifle in combat service. And they also conducted the last cavalry charge with horses by the US military. And they were successful in that cavalry charge.
Good job.
So I think what we're going to do here is open a little gate here in the fence. We're going to let our cavalry squadron here and also our scout car come on in. And as we move this unit onto the field, I've been asked by the owner of the scout car if you would please drive around the mud puddle. And we worked hard to restore this vehicle, so I think it's a very reasonable request. So guys, as we bring the horses in here for a quick ride by, I'm going to ask you guys to just kind of keep your movements to a minimum. I realize these are supposed to be war horses, but some of these are war horses in training. So there you have the white scout car. Kind of looks like the half-track you saw earlier, but with wheels in the back rather than with tracks. Those are water-cooled guns. Somebody asked me, are those water-cooled guns? Those are definitely water-cooled guns on the back there. Later in the war, we used the air-cooled 30 millimeter or 30 caliber machine guns, but those are 30 caliber water-cooled. And I used to know the names of some of the horses, but they've gotten some new recruits now, so I can't help you there. But there you have the men. I think some of them may even have I think they have a couple of McClellan saddles out here too, I think. They're all wearing the gear of the Philippine Scouts and what would have been the cavalry service in the 30s and up to 1940-41. Again, this unit made the last cavalry charge in history for the United States military, at least. They ran through some Japanese units and really messed them up. So they were quite effective. I heard somebody mention Afghanistan. They were using horses again in Afghanistan. They could simply go some places that vehicles couldn't go.
First squad, as the skirmish charge to the right. Captain Petruski, take the second squad patrol to the left. Draw pistols! Pistols! First platoon, first squad, at a walk. First! As skirmishers!
What? Probably is ready. Think tank? All right.
So ladies and gentlemen, much in the same way that in the story War Horse, you saw the juxtaposition of horses to tanks and a change in technology, you're kind of seeing that again here. The white scout car sort of represents the future and where we were going with mechanized combat. But we were still using the horses very effectively, and the Philippine Scouts were one unit that continued to use horses and made that last cavalry charge. And I want to thank all these reenactors, because it's a big job to get your reenactor gear out to the reenactment. It's another thing entirely to bring the saddles and the horses and all the extra gear. So thank you guys. As I say, I used to know the names of some of the horses, but they've got some new recruits now, so you'll have to go over to their encampment over by the White House and introduce yourselves to them, and I'm sure they'll let you meet the horses too.
I didn't expect the tank round to be that loud.
Wow.
I've actually never real things about I was wondering about that. If it's the real thing. Real crowd.
We're going to let them make one more pass around here. Sometimes they're lucky enough to find a few Japanese in the woods. I don't know if they're going to find any today. If so, we're going to salute their effectiveness at having eliminated the enemy. Just as with a real war horse, even in the reenactment, you have to be able to train these animals to kind of do things they might not normally do. Be really responsive, be really quiet, and, no pun intended, bomb-proof, so that these animals don't get scared of the gunfire and the pops and the loud booms, because some of the reenactments can get pretty loud. This vehicle right here, the M2 White Scout car, was used a lot by the United States and also by the British forces and by the Russians. And ultimately, the Russians went on to copy it in something called the BTR-40. I happen to know a gentleman who was with the MPs, the Army Air Service. He had two of these on an island called Tinian. Gentlemen, thank you again. You'll notice they're still wearing the World War I era helmets. At this point, they still had not been issued with the steel pots that you saw the Marines wearing earlier. For that white scout car, I mentioned two of them were in service with this gentleman who had an MP unit with Harley-Davidson motorcycles in Tinian. He was there in 1944 and 45, and one of the last things he was asked to do was guard a big box that came to the base. He was told later, can't tell you what it is, but you can shoot anybody and kill them if they get anywhere near it. As it turned out, that was the bomb, the first of the two. So he ended up, his name was George Bonneville, and just one of those World War II veterans that we lost a few years ago. But I would love to tell him that I'm out here with a white scout car like the kind he used.